All right, everybody.
Welcome to the first North Shore Fellowship live chat ever. This is new for us, so if you are tuning in, welcome. We are here to talk about some things on the near horizon regarding getting back together, public worship, other things going on with the search committee process and things like that. So you'll hear from all three of us in due time about some of those details, and of course, we're here to take questions that might come up along the way.
You're welcome to text in those questions to our question hotline. Chris, do you have the contact info for that? It was emailed out earlier this week, and hopefully you can pull that up if you need to and submit some things if there's particular things that you want to hear from us on. We have particular things we want to share with you as well, and we'll welcome Chris Powell to the stage.
That's right. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
You have a new album to tell us about?
Yeah, I'm that famous.
Yeah.
I may be stepping in and out to handle some tech stuff, and I will look up that phone number. I have it coming in on my phone right now.
And we have received some questions already, so thank you.
Yes, we have already gotten some questions, and the number to text is coming up shortly. Man.
This will teach you to read your emails. It's very important.
Yeah, we're real high tech, good at this live streaming stuff. Here we go. The number is 423-521-2224. Again, the number is 423-521-2224. It should be in the email you got. Feel free to text us a question. We have a few things that we want to talk about that recent decisions and things just to keep y'all in the loop. We'll try to keep this whole thing under an hour, at least. You can dip in and out as you see fit. It's just a conversation. So text us if you have something you'd like us to address specifically. Otherwise, we have some things we want to share with you. So
Why don't we start with regathering? I think that's the biggest question on everyone's mind, and we're hearing a lot about that and have been for a long time. We're all weary of gathering in these kinds of formats, and we did not go to seminary to stare at a screen. That was not something, or stare at a video camera. That's not something that we've ever aspired to. So we're all eager to be back with those of you who can gather. So I think it'd be good for us to jump into that discussion.
yeah. So thank you as a congregation for being patient. You really have been patient. We haven't felt poked or prodded to regather, which is really helpful. It's allowed us to make a calm decision in the midst of a lot of change and even some crisis within the city, and Robbie leaving and all sorts of changes that we have had to adjust to. So thank you for that. It's given the staff and the session time to reflect, and that's been really healthy and good. We would like to announce today that we will regather for worship on June 28th. So on June 28th, our plan is to regather for worship here in the sanctuary, some people. And what that means is that we'll actually have a system where you can reserve a spot for your family. Let us know how many people are coming. We'll have the sanctuary divided up so that we can maintain distance between each household of people. And you'll get your first, we'll give you more information as time goes on, but it's very likely that you'll be able to sign up for that service on the 28th. You'll be able to sign up for that on June 24th, the Wednesday before. So that's the day we try to target for sending out our email on a weekly basis. So that's what we're going to do is open up that system for signing up to reserve a spot on the June the 24th. And again, the idea is to regather in the sanctuary on June 28th with a limited number of capacity, and you reserve a spot in advance. And that's a big piece of news.
It is. And we landed on the times of those services, Chris?
We, not hard and fast,
Okay.
but I think what times we're going to shoot for is our 9 o'clock service time that we had before. And then we need plenty of time to empty the building, clean between the services. So our next service will be at 11. So Sunday morning at 9, Sunday morning at 11, and then Sunday evening at 5 p.m. like we did before with our PM service.
And like Chris just said, hold that loosely. That's not,
Hold it loosely.
it's not set in stone.
But the things we know we're going to do, we're going to at least put some space between each service, keep the services a little shorter and plenty of time between so we can wipe down services and really just so the air in this sanctuary has a time to circulate and change out.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we are going to have some requirements on what it's going to take to gather. So, and we're excited about regathering. I wouldn't say we're excited about the requirements that it takes, but the precautions that we have to put in place. But limiting distance between households to 6 feet is a top priority for us. So we'll be sitting every other pew. They happen to be 3 feet apart, so if you skip one, you got 6 feet. So we'll be sitting every other pew. We'll have spaces marked out in the sanctuary where your family can sit, your household can sit. You can sit by yourself if you like. So that is probably expected that we would do something like that. 2 other decisions that we've really talked a lot about and tried to weigh very consciously and carefully and not take sides on, but just do what we think is best. One of those decisions is that we are going to require masks. So masks will be required for anyone ages 3 and up. I have a 3-year-old, so I know that is going to be incredibly difficult, and it may not work, and we may not be able to come to worship for a little while because of her. We love her dearly, but that would be a shame. But masks are going to be required, 3 and up. And if you remember that the mask is for the other person, I think that helps a lot here. Yeah. You might be seated 6 feet away from someone that is both older and has immunosuppression of some kind or some secondary thing. And I know that none of us want to be the people that infect someone else. The mask, the research seems to say that the mask really helps with that. So we will be requiring masks. I know you'll have questions about that. And I still have questions about how we're going to actually pull that off. We will have some here. We do have some on hand. We've ordered some disposable masks. I'll be honest, they're not super awesome. You're not going to want to keep it and use it forever. So if you have one, please bring it and wear it, the one from home. The other decision that it might be one of the hardest ones to swallow, at least at first, is that at least at first, we're not going to do congregational singing. So what that means is that Michael or Christina or somebody might be on stage singing 15 feet away from the nearest person, but as a congregation, we're not going to invite you to sing along with those songs. So they're going to still be familiar songs. We're still going to have the lyrics up. You can hum along quietly underneath your mask, sing in your heart as loud as you want to, but we are going to ask that the congregation not participate in singing those songs. Again, the research mostly says that this has to do with our breath, and the more we breathe out, especially a long, controlled breath, like associated with singing, even with a mask, has a much higher probability of infecting someone else. So we are going to limit singing.
That's an incredibly disappointing thing for us to wrestle with. We really like hearing people sing. It really matters to us. And it's good for our spirits to be around people who are rejoicing and helping our hearts conform to the words that we're singing. So some of you may even choose not to come simply because that's a very, very difficult thing. We've already had this conversation with the session. Some people simply can't imagine being here and not singing. And it may be the case that you want to gather in your backyard, if you have a TV outside or some scenario like that, find a large room with a couple of people that you feel comfortable being in a social bubble with, so to speak, and worshiping together. And maybe you have more freedom to sing in a context like that. And that's not something that we're going to criticize or we're going to judge people for, when they're making those sorts of decisions. And we would just encourage you to have a lot of grace for the way in which different people interact with North Shore and our worship services and the requirements that we're laying down on ourselves and on the congregation, and give people space to make their own decisions. All of the things that we're wrestling with, all of the options, just like everything in life, there's always going to be risk involved. It is not risk-free to come to worship at North Shore. And it's not risk-free to gather with a handful of other people. It's not risk-free to drive on the highway, for that matter. So we're always taking these risks, and we want to give grace and space to our brothers and sisters who are making decisions that might be different from ours. And we also want to acknowledge that many of you are in a health situation or of an age that the risk would be much higher for you. And we've wrestled with the significance of that, and we want to try to provide for you pastorally and relationally. Even if you can't come here, we still want you to feel like you're a part of what's going on at North Shore. And so we're trying to reach out to people who fit those descriptions. If you haven't heard from us, please reach out and make sure that you call that to our attention, because that is something that we're trying to put a lot of effort into, just checking on people, seeing where they're at, seeing where their heart's at.
I'm going to start the stream again. It'll show up here.
Check, check, check.
And you have to adjust it over here, Jason, John, Chris, and just try to make sure we're kind of hitting the yellow sometimes. Thank you.
Anything coming through now?
All right, I think we're back.
All right.
Back online. Technology solving all of our problems.
Dig down deep back into your heart where you were before because that was so powerful, JT, what you were saying.
Okay,
Yeah.
one more try, JT. Yeah.
I can't muster it up again. It was just.
You probably can't recreate the beauty.
Yeah,
of
it was
what
too
you
good.
shared.
Okay.
I realize that's the best thing I'll ever say here. Now, what I was saying is, in this effort to open up June 28th, with the parameters that none of us like, and just trying to care for those around us, we do want the same things. We just want to remind you that we too want to gather under normal circumstances and sing very loudly and take communion and do all those things to greet one another. We miss that. That is our goal. We're just trying to proceed with caution based off a lot of the good feedback and data that we get from very trusted entities. And so a lot of due diligence has been done. So this is our first step that we can take to that end. But again, we want the same things. Just please know that.
The way we're looking at this is, this is a step towards normalcy. We are progressing, and we're trying to get back to what we all miss and what we all long for. So.
Like Matt Ashworth is in the room right now. That's great. I can see his face. You know what I mean? Like, it's just good to see another human being and in the sanctuary.
Okay.
Matt's looking good, isn't he?
All right, I just caught up on all of y'all's feedback about the sound. Thank you. That actually was really helpful because we would not have known otherwise. And Matt is helping us now. So we got two questions related to regathering for worship. One is no congregational singing until So what's the criteria to be singing again? That is the million-dollar question. So as we've spoken with public health experts and doctors of different kinds, the most consistent answer is that within a decision, some things are going to be more or less risky than others. So I think Jason used an example earlier of driving. If you're going to choose to drive, obeying the speed limit and wearing your seatbelt, those are good decisions that's going to make driving safer, even though driving always has a danger associated with it. Driving on the wrong side of the expressway is super dangerous, and we would never recommend doing that. So no congregational singing until. So the hard thing is that people feel comfortable saying one thing is higher risk than another, and people feel comfortable saying that, like right now in Hamilton County, we're seeing a lot more cases than we were 3 weeks ago, but over the last 2 weeks, it's pretty much flat. So those are just observations we can make. When pressed for an answer, how do we know when we move to a higher risk level or when we can relax our standards? How do we objectively measure that and know it so that we don't disagree on it? The answer is usually something like, it depends on what you feel comfortable with. So unfortunately, there's no objective criteria for moving to a more cautious or a more free stance on some of these things. So some of them we're just going to have to feel out.
Yeah, I think that's a very appropriate answer, like as far as playing things by ear, week to week, assessing, keeping our eye on those things, and then weighing the data in that type of capacity. So again, it's a cliche to say like we don't know what we don't know. That's always true here. There's like a little bit of a moving target and just trying to do the best we can as more stuff comes into us.
And it will be subjective. So I wish we could say, when we cross this certain threshold of cases or something like that, that's when we know for sure. It'll be subjective, and we want to sing again. So it'll be as soon as we think we can. Another question came in. Any news on the Lord's Supper? Y'all want to take that one?
Yeah, it certainly seems to be the case that we're probably going to wait on that as well for a while. We're open at some point to exploring other ways to celebrate the supper together in smaller groups with elders and smaller groups gathered like fellowship groups. We haven't crossed that bridge yet, but those are things that we're weighing and in regular conversation with the session about, and other staff as well who might need to be involved in that decision-making process. Certainly, when you're sharing food, that's one of those potential risky scenarios where the risk starts to go up. And unfortunately for us, some of the things that we love dearly, like singing and eating together, are particularly risky. Not things that we're yet willing to put on the table for everyone. But again, obviously that's something we deeply desire. There is a reason that North Shore is a church that regularly celebrates the sacraments, and something that we take very seriously here. And so obviously we're really hoping to be doing that again soon.
Did you get another question, Chris?
Yeah, a few more questions. This is good. Thank y'all for sending in questions. One person's asking about there's some evidence against healthy people wearing masks. I'm thinking you might be referring to the World Health Organization's comments a few days ago. And I think those were, I've been told that they were based on not enough research and evidence. That is certainly something we would love to hear, is that asymptomatic people don't need to wear a mask. That would be a game changer. I don't think we're scientifically there yet as I consult with other doctors and healthcare professionals. And then a follow-up question, and this is great, why is 6 feet distance not sufficient without masks? So this is where you get in, one thing is more risky or less risky than another. If you were gathering outdoors, the risk in general goes way down. So one thing I've tried to practice is if I'm outdoors and I'm 6 feet away from somebody, I'm not wearing a mask, because the one early estimate has said that you're 20 times more likely to pass this virus indoors than outdoors. So if you've already taken the step of being outdoors, I think you can relax masks as long as you're also keeping distance. Indoors, for a longer period of time, is already a risky mix. So if we can bring the risk down with masks, with distance, and with not singing, we're getting closer to what it might be like to gather outdoors 6 feet apart. But actually, we're probably gathering in person. It still carries a lot of risk. So that's a good question. Y'all have any thoughts on that one? I can read the next one and let y'all go with it.
Go ahead.
So one question is, will we be live streaming and will there be nursery?
Yeah, on nursery, assume no nursery for right now. Like we're not doing nursery. When we are ready to start that back up, obviously Diane Zeglin will be talking with me and others to figure that out, how, to what capacity we can do, but for the time being, assume we will not have nursery here. If you come as a family, you'll sit as a family. That'll be the parameters there.
And please know, I know it's difficult to have kids in the sanctuary, but that's something that we believe in.
Yes.
That's not something to be embarrassed about. That's not something to be, for people who don't have kids to look down on those who have kids who are being unruly. That's just part of being a church family together. And we're quite used to people falling asleep during our sermons or crying during our sermons. So it's not going to bother us when kids are present with us. That's really important to us to be able to have that.
I guess we shouldn't call out names for the people we've noticed falling asleep.
Right.
We'll speak to you privately.
Right.
Chris, there was a second part to that, nursery, and what was the other?
Live streaming.
Live streaming.
Yeah, we will live stream. In fact, what we're doing right now is a test of how good that's going to be.
We've crushed it.
We're working on it. We want to make it very good because the option to stay at home and continue to worship with us online is essential for all this to work. We're probably only going to be able to accommodate a third of our normal worshipers on a Sunday, even with multiple services and sign-ups. So right there, 2/3 of our congregation on a given week will be worshiping remotely instead of in the room, and we want that to be as good as possible. We do want it to be live. There's something about the live experience that we've lost by pre-recording, as necessary as that was for a season. So we want to get back to that. Let me make sure I'm catching up on stuff.
And like again, if you are of the high risk demographic, we do long to see you again, but we would even encourage you to take advantage of the live stream. Like that is offered to you for that very reason, that you can participate, odd as it may be, but you are still participating with us at the same time.
We also want to support you pastorally. We want to be present in your life. We're happy to come to your house, hang out on your patio, whatever's safe, whatever you feel comfortable with, and just to be with you in this particularly challenging season.
Okay. Some more logistical questions about how we're actually going to pull this off. By the way, we have a sheet that we'll distribute pretty soon that is going to cover things like pre-screening before you come in, maintaining distance in the hallways and in the pews, covering your face with a mask, and our own cleaning regiment, what we're going to be doing there. We're limiting a lot of things, like anything that we would all touch, like an offering plate or communion or something. We won't do that. We'll have a box in the back where you can drop your offering. This question is based on the new seating arrangement. What will the approximate number of people be? So, yeah, we've gotten 300 people in our sanctuary before. It takes a little bit of shoehorning to do that. In this current situation, the recommendation is stay under 50, so that gets us down to 150. But as we did the measuring and figuring out how we can actually keep diverse sizes of groups of people away from each other, it gets down to more like 70. So it's more like a 25% capacity. That's where we're going to start, and we'll see what we can do after that. Maybe that's too cautious, and we'll take it from there. That's a good question.
We've had a lot of experience with worship that size on Sunday evening, and 70 feels like a pretty good amount. Just feels like a lively place, and obviously part of that's because people are seeing. But even when people are simply present, when we're praying or preaching or reading God's Word, 70 is a good number, and it will feel like something here.
A question about managing entry, exit, gathering in hallways, and the foyer. We're creating some new signs for that purpose. We are still evaluating exit strategy, although our entrance strategy is pretty simple. We're gonna, as many people as can walk the stairs are gonna be asked to come right in the back door, double doors, be helped to find a seat that's socially distant from other households. And when the service is over, be dismissed from back to front, out that back door. There's some suggestion that we use these front doors for exit, and we are evaluating that possibility. They come with some fall risks and other things that make it tricky. Gathering in the hallways is a no-no. This will be a show up for worship and walk straight outside. If people want to gather out in the front lawn or parking lot or something and talk, that is fine, but we're going to discourage the use of any other part of the building. Okay, this is great. Yes, do people, I'm changing the question a little bit. I know the person that's asking, I don't think she'll mind. Can you choose to sit with somebody that's not in your household? Yes, you can make that decision. But if you're going to do that, you need to work it out ahead of time with that person and not come sit next to somebody that's trying to sit by themselves. So we're not going to police that. If we see somebody sitting by themselves and two other people come in and they want to sit with that person and they've talked about it and they're going to sit together, that's fine. It would actually help us if you planned on that and signed up together as a group of 3. So that would let us know what the intentions are, and it would all be above board. What we don't want you to do is come sit next to somebody that looks lonely just because they do. So we get a lot of questions here. This is great.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the services, while they're live streaming, they're also being recorded. That's just part of what YouTube does by default. So this meeting, for instance, will be available afterward. Not that you're going to want to watch it again. It's so awesome. But
Better
yes,
the third time.
It will be.
If you do watch it again, you should definitely seek some pastoral counsel. We have more to talk about.
So yes, they will be live streamed and pre-recorded. We'll live stream that 9 a.m. service so that anybody can choose to tune in online anytime after that if they want to. The restrooms will be available. We're shooting for a service time closer to 50 minutes, and we're not having any other Sunday school or other events. So, I mean, if you don't have to go to the restroom here, that's great, but they will certainly be available. We're not going to turn people away for that. Do we need additional volunteers to help with cleaning between services? Yes, we do. Thank you for that question. We'll be recruiting volunteers to do things like that. We're going to have our deacons like we normally do, and they will be here between services. We'll have musicians. So we'll have people on hand that'll be here for that, like almost really an hour or more break between services. So, but yes, we would like to use volunteers for that. Another thing, I assume this means no meals at the 5 p.m. service. Unfortunately, you're correct. It actually means no food of any kind for this first step that we're taking.
We are going to save a lot of money not brewing coffee, so that's
Yeah.
positive, but still really sad.
Another question on service times. Yeah, 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 5 p.m., no coffee, no communion, all that stuff. I'll answer that question privately. And someone else asked a good question. Hold on. Okay, what about gathering outside? Is that a viable option? It could be on a decent day. So as a regular plan, I don't think that we could make that our regular thing. On a nice day that's not too hot, and we've had some recently that might work in some settings. We could even use our own parking lot for that. the issues with moving sound equipment and things like that, and then losing seating and things like that, it does make it pretty tricky. That said, we may try to do a one-off outside event of some kind sometime this summer or fall, and that would certainly be, that's something that we could invite more of our congregation to.
And it's also possible that some of you may be inspired to do different things on your own, and we want to affirm that. We have
Yes.
a lay-initiated lament service that's going to be happening. We're going to be putting online maybe as early as this afternoon. And we're in a particularly unique moment as a church, and we're not going to be capable of driving the ship in its entirety. And so there's certainly room for creativity. There's room for things that you all may feel are necessary and helpful. And so we want to support you in that in any way we can, including by being present if you'd like us to be present, and come and participate in something that you're putting together. We're more than happy to support you in that regard. I think to some extent our creativity levels are not as high as they might be just because of everything else going on here at North Shore. So we certainly invite you all to take up that mantle and lead, be creative, and we'll try to support you as best we can in that. Chris, should we change gears and talk about some of the other things? We can revisit the questions as needed. And
yeah, y'all can keep
come back
asking
around to it.
questions. We can move backwards in this for sure. Obviously, this is informal, but yeah.
So obviously, one of the other big things that we're processing, this is Robbie's last week on active duty here at North Shore. He's going to continue to be on the books for a little while as we really owe him some sabbatical that he hasn't taken. But we had our last session meeting with him, our last gathering with the staff with Robbie, and I think he was roasted well. I think that's fair to say.
Lots of impersonations.
Yeah, some better than others. Yeah, that was not recorded and will not be broadcast on YouTube. But as you all, I'm sure, know, we all love Robbie dearly. He was such a fantastic boss and is still a fantastic friend. And so we're going to miss him greatly, and we're having to process what life looks like without him. For the congregation as a whole, one of the things that that means is that you will have a role, if you're a member at North Shore, in selecting the next senior minister. That comes about two ways. First is the nominating committee. There's a pulpit committee that is voted on by the congregation that then will have to vet different preachers and go through different applicants and weigh what we're looking for, what we need at this particular moment in the life of North Shore. And then we'll come back and offer a recommendation to the congregation. Again, the congregation gets to vote on that. And so for that pastor nomination search process, as the pulpit committee is put together, it needs to have a couple of elders, a deacon, it needs to have men and women, and we're looking, I think, at a total of 9 people. So here in the near future, we're going to do what's really pretty standard procedure. We're going to gather names from the congregation. So we want you to be thinking of people who you'd like to have a hand in that decision-making process. Think about people who've been at North Shore for a while, older people, younger people, men and women, people who might have wisdom and might make a good decision if they were tasked with selecting the next pastor of North Shore Fellowship. That obviously is a topic for prayer, so please be in prayer about that. We can't put that committee together yet. We have not officially dismissed Robbie from our congregation. There's a number of procedures that we have to go through and that his new presbytery and new church in Alabama have to go through in order for all the I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed. When that happens, probably in July, we'll announce that we are forming that committee and we're actually looking for names. You'll get some information ahead of time, probably about 2 weeks' notice, but you can go ahead and start thinking of people that you might want making that decision. And then you'll submit those names. We'll harvest those names from you. We'll take them to the session. The session will make sure that there's an equitable distribution of different people from different stages of life, and then offer a slate to the congregation. We'll have a congregational meeting That probably means having people here in the sanctuary at 105 and in the fellowship hall so that we can safely get everyone here. And then having everyone vote on that slate of people as the session sifts those names that have been provided by the congregation. So July 12th, I think we're looking at a congregational meeting. We don't know, probably won't be able to do all that business there because we have to release Robbie. We have to address the budget for 2020 and 2021. And we also have to vote on officers for this year, for elders and deacons. Speaking of budget, JT, you want to talk a little bit about budget and where we're at and what we need?
Well, regarding the budget overall, we're also a little bit on a wait-and-see game as far as it's an unusual time. When it comes to where North Shore is currently, I think these guys can correct me, but it's fair to say we're in good shape, although we're doing okay. But we also know that there's been a lot of different stressors for various reasons. We do know some people that actually have lost work and been looking for it, and so giving was down a little bit last month. And so we're trying to keep an eye on that, like what that might mean. And so if you really are, if that's your story, like you are struggling with work situations, we get that. We empathize, and like we would love even to help find work and how it could be of service or support you in various ways also. And we also know that with Robbie leaving, that often can just shake people up a little bit, and that's okay too. Again, Robbie's love is easy to affirm, still a good friend of ours, but we do know when there's a change in leadership that can affect some people, and that's okay too. But we are having to keep an eye on the budget as far as we look for the coming year. These last couple of months and the next few months might need to reassess some things. The Finance Committee is doing a really good job keeping tabs on that.
Yeah, throughout the year, your giving has been consistently slightly above where we anticipated it being, so that has enabled us to go on unabated and not worry about budget stuff so much. This is a different situation. As John said, if any of y'all are experiencing financial hardship, we'd love to at least hear about that, pray for you if it's helping you find a job, connecting you with somebody else in the same business that we may know of. We'd love to be able to do that. And if that's the reason that, so the giving in May was a little down from what we expected, and enough so that I'm mentioning it. And if that's the reason, we totally get it and understand. If it has to do with Robbie leaving and you may be thinking, I might shop for another church right now, I'll try something else. It's easy to do right now. You just click on a different link and you're at a different church. We understand. We actually get that. People leave all the time when senior pastors do. If 10, 15% of our congregation changes, I'm not going to be surprised over that.
And to be fair, we weren't hired because we were photogenic, so this is
That's right.
you know, a tough moment for us.
Well, nor was Robbie, really.
That's fair.
Let's be honest.
That's fair. Yeah.
And if we also know that, so our own Luke Banner is planting a church, and some people have begun designating their tithe toward his plant. If that's what you're doing, again, we affirm all three of those. But one thing I've noticed, this happened to us, it happened to several other families that we talked to, because we haven't been gathering on Sunday morning and you haven't been in the same place where you have a habit of taking out your checkbook and writing the check or even getting online and giving, our cadence has been thrown off. And so for some of us, we've realized, oh no, I haven't given for 3 weeks, and you've got to make up for it. So if that's the case, then come on. I'm encouraging you to do better. But if, you know, we're certainly not all about the money, and we try not to stress it too much.
I feel like,
but if you meant to give in May, and you didn't, please give now.
Because Chris mentioned Luke Banner, I feel like it's worth just even the life of the church. Jason mentioned some lay-led service that they've been working on together, the lament service coming up. I do just want to affirm that stuff actually still is going on at the church. We've all been meeting with people as they ask, kind of safely with parameters that they would like to meet. Some of you are very aware, obviously, of the racial reconciliation talks going on around us for cultural reasons, and that's something we care about deeply. We actually welcome those conversations. I've had several phone calls from you the last couple of weeks to talk more over the phone or in person. We like doing that. Again, Luke Banner's been gathering people for his church plant online. And has recruited some really fantastic families from our body that we celebrate. Lainey, for Vacation Bible School, she has put these packets that you can sign up for if you have children to children's ministry to pick up on June 19th to take home and do some work with the Hebrews with your kids. That's fantastic. And Rob and Crystal have been reaching out to parents of kids in the youth group who might want to meet in other various capacities as well, smaller groups, outside, safely to do so. So again, your giving has contributed to all that we've been able to function as a church in many ways that often go unseen. So I just want you to affirm, between Luke planting the church, the youth group, children's ministry, us meeting with the people, talking about the racial dynamics going on in our country, that's wonderful ministry. And so please contact us. Aware that North Shore has continued on in many good ways.
Should we embarrass Laney?
Yes,
Maybe.
absolutely.
Our own Laney Staten, children's ministry director, has been asked by our whole denomination to be part of a 8 or 10 person team that serves the whole denomination in children's ministry. So it's the PCAs, that's our denomination, CDM,
Discipleship ministry?
Yeah, Children's Discipleship
Okay,
Ministries.
yeah, something discipleship ministries, children's ministry, something. I can't remember all the specifics, but it's a big honor. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
The way we've done children's ministry here has been noticed. More so the way that Laney has reached out to other children's ministry directors and formed a team and gotten advice from other people. That's been acknowledged locally, and now it's being acknowledged nationally. It's really cool.
So you all probably noticed we don't beat people over the head with our denomination. It's not on the sign or anything like that, but it is important to us. And so this is a wonderful connection, and there are lots of these organic connections within our body, whether because of Covenant College or other efforts that we engage in as a congregation and as pastors that connect us to our presbytery and to the denomination at large. And it's a great honor for Laney. If you understand Presbyterianism, you understand that being asked to be on a committee is the highest honor one can receive in the Presbyterian Church.
We've gotten a few more questions mostly related to the worship service. So one is, will the 3 services be the same? Yes, they will be the same. The reason for that question is last year the 5 p.m. service was different in every way than the morning service. This one will be the same. Another question is, can we still give by Venmo? And the answer is yes. The giving we receive through our Venmo account has gone way up since all this started. So I think the primary means of giving before that was handwritten checks. Venmo was an option and continues to be a very live option for people. If you really want to, you can give by credit card, but we do pay a processing fee for that, so it's not our favorite option, but it's fine if that's what you like. You can also call your bank and ask them to just set up a regular giving pattern, and what they do is they mail us a check. So it's kind of the same to us as getting a check. So you can continue to get those. I think we're caught up on questions.
Great.
Oh, good.
John, you mentioned race relations, just addressing that. Somebody just texted a joke question while I was trying to say something serious. Not funny. We could address that more, and maybe in a setting like this. Do you have thoughts on that, or?
Yeah.
We did communicate to the body last week, posted something on Facebook. If you are not on Facebook, it's open for anyone to see, and we did include that link in last week's email that went out. So, we are communicating about this more broadly, and as John said, we're also having a lot of one-on-one conversations, both inside and outside of our body.
There have been various things, some in the city, put on by other churches and groups, even some groups that are ecumenical, that are multi-church, multi-denomination conversations they've had with various leaders. Those are all around us. If you need help tracking those down, you're welcome to contact me. I can easily flag some of those for you. Our denomination has put on various things as well for pastors and their leaders, just to continue those conversations. It is an important one to have.
We had a wonderful prayer meeting last Friday from churches all over the city, and it was great to see some North Shore people out at that.
And one thing that a venue like this would be better than some other venues to have that discussion.
Yeah.
In this sense, we're receiving questions and can address them. And this is not as preferred as face-to-face, in my opinion, or in person or in a gathering. And so I do not find social media the best forum to have such a important conversation where sensitivity is high in all sorts of directions that can often just lead to misinterpretation, one-way shots versus actually give and take and seeing a facial expression and talking to an embodied person in front of you. And so again, that is something we care about. Carl Ellis, I mentioned last week, he's meant a lot to us three, to Robbie especially. He's taught our fellows class in times past. His wife has too, Karen. Fantastic teachers. Our denomination is better for their presence. They have wonderful things to say. We like discussing those things. And so if you want to talk, please contact us. If you want other venues or resources of where we're to plug into or things to read, we can help there as well. We're happy to do so.
Yeah, we're happy to discuss such things. They are complex. They are better one-on-one or small group style to discuss those things, which is part of the reason we haven't put out a whole lot about it. The other thing is probably that our voices are maybe not the ones that you need to hear from the most. So our own denomination, the PCA, has a part of it called the MNA, Mission to North America, and they're doing a series on racial reconciliation. Can't remember the title of it, but somebody just plugged it for us on our chat, so thank you for that.
It's on our Facebook page as well, linked.
Yeah, and if you catch it this week, it'll be predominantly black voices speaking into the issue, which is, I think, something we need.
Yeah.
Well,
We caught up on questions?
we're all caught up on questions.
How many viewers we got?
I don't know.
What's the number? Matt, you got us?
At least 3.
52? 72.
72. That's more than I thought. Thought we'd have 6.
There's no sports on, so
No sports
people,
to tune
yeah.
into. We weren't boring enough.
People are looking for
We tried.
entertainment. Yeah. Movie theaters are closed.
Uh,
This is as good as it gets.
So again, to recap the big things, we are going to form a pulpit committee. We're just not going to do that until after we've voted to release Robbie. So we're going to do those things soon, and we're looking for y'all's nominations. You'll hear more about it. We are going to regather on the 28th unless something else significant changes. At the current time, we're taking the pulse constantly. When we regather on the 28th, it's going to be sign-ups, masks, distancing, no singing. The live stream will be on at 9 a.m. each Sunday, and it will continue maybe forever in the life of our church now. Seems to be a new norm. And I think that's the big stuff.
I'd like to encourage the body, just for those listening. Part of our job, right, we think, is to equip y'all for the work of ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Fatigue is long set in as far as coronavirus and quarantine and things like that. If somebody pops into your head, or you miss seeing somebody's face, you miss talking to them, you should call them. You should email them. You should text them. Actually reach out. Trying just to keep tabs on the many people in our body is difficult. We don't ever expect to do that between just us three, but the body loving the body in just those simple ways, I do think means a lot. And so I really highly encourage you to do so.
Yeah. Chris, we had a question earlier. Somebody asked, what we'll be doing differently if we get back to normal. I think that was intended as a personal question. Do you guys have anything on your agenda?
Oh, yes. That was a question before this even all started.
That's right. Anything you're going to do differently? Wash your hands more?
Yeah, I would like to believe that I'll live a slower paced life and, contemplate the brevity of life and really soberly just soak up what's important. I feel like that is maybe potentially true for some of us, maybe even me, but also know my sinful flesh, my fallen heart will be very quick to revert back to unhealthy patterns or over busyness or working too much or going too fast. But in those ways, I do hope this has slowed me down in a real way that does actually stick. That'd be one of the hopes that I have.
Chris said that he's going to hug people more when he can, close the distance.
Matter of fact, when this is over, y'all should all just give Chris a big hug. We're in this safe zone.
Group hug.
That's what we need to do here. Chris, any thoughts?
I didn't even get this last comment, but I thought it was really funny. I won't read it. Think life differently after this. I think not just the pandemic, but lots of other things has taught me a lot about people seeing the world very differently. Even seeing the same graph and drawing, taking from an objective piece of data and saying, well, that means it means this, and that means it means that. Just appreciating that there's a broad spectrum of the way that we see and value things, the priorities we put into things. And one thing that just keeps occurring to me through all of this is nobody's trying to be wrong. The people that feel very differently about something than you do, they're not thinking that they're being idiots and trying to, convey a view that's dumb. They actually think this is right. This is the way I see the world, and that's just occurred to me over and over again. Is that I'm too quick to be critical of somebody else's vantage point on the world and the conclusions they're drawing from it. So I hope that sticks with me.
That's a good one. You got another question?
Robbie Holt asks, how many seminary grads does it take to change a light bulb? So thanks for that, Robbie. Real helpful. Glad you're here with us in spirit.
The answer is none.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to seminary to change a light bulb. You don't have to go to seminary to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
If you go to seminary, you're probably not pretty handy anyway. You might struggle with that light bulb changing, and so probably shouldn't. Chris is one of the exceptions, like an engineering mind that goes to seminary. Not many of those out there.
So I know how to change a light bulb. All right, we're quickly devolving. How about we close in prayer? Well,
Sure.
you two do it?
Yeah, I'll pray for us. Father in heaven, we thank you for this time, that we could converse in an unorthodox way, but converse nonetheless. Questions could be asked, and we could just address things going on. We thank you for the body of North Shore Fellowship. Again, we thank you for our friend Robbie. I do pray that you would allow all of us to love each other well, to seek to love our neighbors well where you have placed us, with so many things weighing on us at the moment, be it loneliness, isolation, the civil unrest all around us, that you really would well up in us the joy of salvation that we have, that our hope is sure, that Jesus is reigning even now. We can take great confidence in that. You would be with us as a body, to walk in your ways, to be led by your Spirit, to continue to exhibit patience with one another, patience in just the things that we want. Continue to be and care for your bride. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, y'all.